What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Face Off Sports Network. We're back. I'm your host, Anthony Servino. Follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. Follow the show at the FF Face Off and at fffaceoff.com. We can be found at all the top social media and podcast platforms. Back with me, it is a Football Wednesday, Stock Market Watch, biggest ADP Movers Wednesday. Pete Terra Nova at Super Nova 38, Steve D'Angelo at Fantasy Savvy. Guys, what's going on?
What's going on, fellas? What's going on, Anthony, Pete, all the listeners out there, people in the chat? We got some little stock market watch. Yeah, Underdog, Best Ball, Biggest Movers, Shakers, and a little FFPC, I guess, and maybe some NFC as well. But yeah, welcome everybody. Ready to get into it. Pete, are you a Steelers fan?
Nah, this is a Jerome Bettis jersey. Yeah, I figured I'd break it out for a little nostalgia today since we had some Steeler fans in the spaces last night. So I wanted to show a little love, show a little love. I got no beef with the Steelers. We've had some pretty good run-ins with them when we were relevant. So
yeah, we had a good discussion on spaces last night talking about the Steelers and George Pickens. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely did. I will say though, I used to be a big coffee drinker. I used to drink coffee routinely, and the last 2 years I stopped drinking coffee because it messed up my stomach. And I drank my first actual like full glass of coffee today, and man, I missed coffee. I'll tell you that.
You were vibing, right? You were vibing.
Man, dude, I've been dragging ass lately. I'll tell you.
You don't drink coffee for a while, and you have that first cup, you feel like you're on top of the world for sure.
I definitely had the jitters, that's for sure.
So, I mean, let's get right into it. I wasn't expecting you guys to go into a coffee conversation or a
breaking the ice, man.
Conversation.
You got to warm it up before you just go right into it.
I actually do own a Steelers jersey, by the way. It's Mean Joe Green. Little nostalgia.
That's a solid one.
Pittsburgh Steelers jersey right there.
I like that.
So let's get into it. We're going to talk ADP movers. We're going to start doing this, I don't know, maybe weekly, maybe bi-weekly, but, this is actionable information that's going to help you going into your drafts, going into fantasy football draft season, because that's approaching. And ADP, right, these player price points are going to move. Now, we're kind of in a dead zone between now and training camp, but once training camp hits, you know what's going to happen. There's going to be injuries, there's going to be beat writers, there's going to be coach speak, and all of these reports are going to adjust how you draft. Some of you are going to buy into a report, some of you are going to ignore it and continue to draft your guy. So this is why these ADP movers episodes are really going to help you going into draft season. We're going to start with let's start with Aaron Jones. And Aaron Jones, Where's the notes? Where are your notes on Aaron Jones?
I didn't pull up any notes on Aaron Jones, but I think, but what I'd say at least and you can pull up his ADP on.
Yeah, I got that now. Like this is
Well, you pull it up. I had Javonte, Jaleel, the other guys, but I think part of the reason Jones has moved up, and Anthony will pull up his exact move. Actually, he's moving.
I would have had this ready. I thought this was in there.
Listen, it was not in there, but needless to say, one of the offensive linemen on the Vikings came out and said that they have two good running backs, not a coach, just one of the offensive linemen on the team. And for some reason, I think people are buying stock into that. So I believe
number one
is moving up a little bit. Yeah, two number one backs, I think was exactly exactly what they had said.
So Aaron Jones down 5.2 spots. Meanwhile, Chandler, he is up 11.3 spots in ADP. Or Chandler, he is currently 141 in terms of ADP. Aaron Jones, who is one of my guys this offseason, at 61.6. So if you're an Aaron Jones guy like me, he's getting a little bit cheaper. And personally, I'm not buying into the hype right now. I think we know who Ty Chandler is. He's a change of pace back. I don't think he's going to cut into Aaron Jones's workload. And I said it all off season long. We look at Aaron Jones's age, look at the contract he signed, it's a 1-year deal. The stars are aligning for the Minnesota Vikings to run him into the ground. They don't have to worry. It's not like a 2-3 year deal where, oh, we got to save this guy for the future. There is no future. This is one and done. And Aaron Jones, who historically has shared workload with guys like Jamal Williams in Green Bay, with guys like A.J. Dillon in Green Bay, it would not shock me if Aaron Jones saw a career high in touches in 2024.
Yeah, I'm with you on Aaron Jones. I think the him dropping is, probably like Pete said, it could be because there's a report out, 2 number ones. All of a sudden people are like, oh, well, Ty Chandler, he's gonna might eat into that workload. I mean, maybe other people are saying, well, Aaron Jones is hurt every single year. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues. Other than sharing the backfield, like you mentioned, Anthony, with Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon. And Aaron Jones was also, always the best running back in that backfield. So whenever Aaron Jones was getting significant carries, significant touches when he was healthy on the field, he just looks like one of the best backs in the league. Yeah. So I like this system. He's coming into Minnesota. I agree that he's going to be the guy. He just needs to stay on the field. That's a little bit of concern, but I'm not worried about Ty Chandler potentially eating into a significant, portion of his touches or carries. So I love taking Aaron Jones. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of risk, but considering his, inability to stay on the field, but at the same time, now he's in a new situation where he could get more touches than he's ever had, or close to, his career highs. So yeah, I like Aaron Jones there on the 5th round. I don't see why he should be moving down at this point. I think, that's a pretty good value at this point.
Yeah, I honestly, I think the thing about Aaron Jones, and we've talked all offseason how we're all pretty much big Aaron Jones fans on this show. I think the main thing with Aaron Jones is health. And if I am drafting Aaron Jones, I really probably, if I have a deep bench, I don't really love handcuffing my own guy. I prefer handcuffing other teams' guys because, in my opinion, there's more upside, right? If your guy, instead of handcuffing your own guy, if you handcuff another guy in the league's player, 1, you have a trade piece, and 2, you have 2 potential starting running backs. But if you have a deeper bench, I don't mind bringing in Chandler as a guy on your bench. I definitely would be targeting him due to Aaron Jones's inability to stay healthy last year. So I think that's probably why we're seeing a little bit of movement, but nothing super significant.
Let's go to Denver, and this is kind of turning into a polarizing backfield. I don't even know. It's a polarizing football team, especially offensively in fantasy football. We don't know who the quarterback is. We think it's going to be Bo Nix. We don't know who the top running backs are going to be. We certainly don't really know who the wide receivers are going to be outside of Cortland Sutton. I mean, this team, this offense is jumbled in fantasy football. If you guess right, you can get some really nice value on a Sean Payton coached team. Now, Aaron Jones, Jaleel McLaughlin, Samaje Perine, the top 3 backs in this backfield. Javonte Williams down 7 spots from 94.1 to 101.1. Jaleel McLaughlin up 6.4 spots from 170 to 163.6. What did you say? Perine up 74.4 spots from 324. He wasn't even a blip on a radar. He's a little bit closer to a blip on a radar at 253.6. And then we have Estime, the rookie, down 13.5 spots from 203.8 to 217.3. Who wants to take it first?
Yeah, I guess being the Broncos fan, I'll jump on this here first. I think you don't want to overreact, but this is a pretty murky backfield. And from all the reports from Cecil Lammey, who is on Fantasy Guys, and he's also a beat writer. I know Ryan Edwards, who was on KOA radio as well, is saying that Jaleel McLaughlin looks like the best running back during the offseason practices. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing is when the pads come on. I think guys like Javonte, P. Ryan, and Estime, that's where really the rubber meets the road, and we'll see how it shakes out because all three of them are physical runners. What I would say is, the Broncos are carrying 5 running backs if you include Blake Watson, who they gave the largest UDFA signing and guaranteed money on the team. So they're carrying 5 backs, and they have a fullback in Burton. I don't see them carrying all 5 plus a fullback. I do think P. Ryan's going to get cut. This could be people that are just being sharp and think that P. Ryan gets cut and finds another team, and maybe he goes to like a team like the Cowboys, right? He gets cut in camp and
don't
then
do
signs.
that to me.
No, but I mean,
Don't
would
do
that
that
be?
to me.
I mean, you'd probably be pretty happy to bring in a guy like P. Ryan.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, a guy like no, you joke around.
Changed my life.
Listen, P. Ryan was actually a pretty good player last year, especially catching the football out of the backfield. He's a tough runner, and honestly, you're going to be hard pressed to find a better running back out on the open market if he is cut. But the point is, if I'm drafting in this running back room today, the only guy I'm probably taking is Jaleel in best ball, and I'm pretty much fading the whole rest of the running back room. This is not going to be a good offense, most likely, and they're projected bottom 5 in total points in this season for the season from the sportsbook. So I'm probably fading this backfield, unfortunately. But if I am taking a guy for pop, it's probably Jaleel.
Yeah, Javonte, there's a love fest for him for sure. Very, very hyped coming out of North Carolina in his rookie season. The break tackle aspect, strong runner. A little bit of a underwhelming rookie season, but it was a rookie season. Close to 1,000 yards, 7 total touchdowns. Also caught 43 balls, so pretty solid overall though for a rookie. And then tears his ACL and I believe MCL was a tear of both ligaments in 2022, and then last year. Really didn't look healthy. I'm coming back from a major injury, just 3.6 yards per carry. So, full year removed, going in the 9th round now. I mean, I guess he's still got to be the favorite to lead this backfield, but they do bring in Audric Estime from Notre Dame, who I kind of like. I continue to talk this guy up. Also from, actually, I think he's from Nyack, New York, but played at St. Joe's in Montvale, big Catholic school program there. But, big bruiser back, had a knee scope recently, but is expected to be ready for training camp. So I like taking him later on. Jaleel McLaughlin looked pretty good in spots last year. There are reports that he's, in like the first one in the building, last one out of the building. Obviously, Sean Payton was talking about that. That's an important thing. I mean, that could earn him some more carries and more touches early in the year. Maybe, he earns a bigger role. He did flash at times last year, but I think it's going to be Javonte or Estime. P. Ryan, yeah, he could be in the mix. They also have Tyler Batty still on the roster, but out of Missouri, he really hasn't done anything since he's been in the NFL. Pete mentioned the rookie from Memphis. So, yeah, very crowded backfield right now, very intriguing backfield. But I think, Javonte is not, I'm not even a Javonte guy. I've never been a Javonte guy, but 9th round for him. I'm sorry, not 9th round. I'm looking at Jameson Williams. Where is he going, Javonte, right now?
He's going at the 101. So you figure he's
okay. Yeah.
So, well,
yeah, he is 9th round. My bad. So yeah. So I mean, I don't mind that as much, but I do like Estime. I think it's gonna be one of those two, kind of leading the backfield. And then Jaleel McLaughlin will kind of work his way in a little bit. Those 3 guys, I think the guys to focus on. But it is crowded. We don't really know what's going on. But I think the value on Javonte has dropped now. I mean, we're talking he used to go 3rd, 4th round. Now he's dropping all the way down to the 9th. So, maybe now is the year to jump on Javonte just because of the value.
Yeah, I'm not in love with this backfield. I'm not in love with this offense, but they're also cheap. And in fantasy, that can bring some value, especially we don't know what this defense is going to look like. I can't imagine it's going to be very good. So there could be a lot of negative game script, which means, hey, some PPR value for your running backs. Now, Javonte, some of his metrics were actually good. 80.2% positive run rate. That's 74th percentile at running back. 73.4% of his yards came after contact, which is 91st percentile. In terms of efficiency overall, 59th in true yards per carry and 53rd in yards per touch. Wasn't very efficient. Now, I go look at Jaleel McLaughlin and smaller sample size, right? He had 76 rush attempts, 31 receptions, so just over 100 touches for 570 yards, 3 total touchdowns. But when you look at his efficiency metrics, sixth in yards created per touch, 4th in true yards per carry, 10th in yards per touch, 6th in juke rate, 13th in breakaway run rate. There is a case to be made that he might be the best running back in this backfield, but what debunks that case is his size, 5'8", buck 87. He's not an every down back. I don't even think he's an early down back. So because of that, I think both are draftable in fantasy football. It's just a matter of what are you looking for. If you need that stability where, okay, I need a guy who's going to get me those early down touches. He's going to get touchdown opportunities and even catch some passes because Javonte did haul in 47 receptions last year. He was also targeted on 33.5% of his routes, which is 98th percentile at running back, and had 12.1% of his team targets, which is 91st percentile. I don't mind Javonte Williams, but if you want to go a little bit cheaper, like I think Jaleel McLaughlin's going to be in the mix. I think he's too talented to not be used. Maybe this is, and we know historically Peyton likes to use multiple running backs. Maybe this is going to be a poor man's Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara. When I say poor man's, I mean like homeless man. Compared with that comparison.
Homeless The thing to keep in mind, Denver targeted the running back position 153 times last year, and Sean Payton in New Orleans, his rankings in the league: 2021 4th, 2020 3rd, 2019 4th, 2018 3rd, 2017 1st, 2016 2nd. That's from Derek Brown from Fantasy Pros. And so, this is an offense that loves to target the running back position, but you also don't have Alvin Kamara. But to your point, and we can close out, and if Steve has anything else, we can jump to him. But like you said, as a Broncos fan, Jaleel, the problem with him is he's got such a big tell. When he's on the field, it's usually an outside run or he's getting the football. He doesn't pass block. They know he doesn't pass block. Teams know that. So unless he steps up and gets better in that area, he's not going to get on the field outside of third down. And even on third down, that's generally when you want the running back to pass block. So that's where I worry with Jaleel with playing time. And if Estime can step up as a pass blocker, he may see the field more than Jaleel. Jaleel might just be a guy that gets, honestly, 7 touches a game, where he's just a change of pace, a guy that offers you pop, and that's really it. So if you're looking for that pop in best ball and you're hurting at the position, I'd go Jaleel. But like Anthony said, if you want the stability, Javonte's still going to get his. I'm sure he's going to probably average at least 15 touches a game, in my opinion.
Let's go to another running back, another backfield, and that's in Tampa Bay, with Rachaad White and Bucky Irving, who's starting to get a little bit of hype. Rachaad White down 4.3 spots. Irving up 3.9 spots. White is going at 42.4. Irving 169.7. Steve, how do you assess this backfield? Because like Rachaad White is Twitter and fantasy football's running back darling. If you drafted Rachaad White last year, he returned immense value. There was no competition in the backfield, but I think they want competition. Like, teams will tell us what they want to do, even if it doesn't happen. And Tampa's one of those teams, and Buffalo's another one. Like where Tampa a couple years ago, they tried bringing in Chase Edmonds. They tried again last year. Like, they want another running back in the mix, just like Buffalo. They keep bringing in these big banger backs to pair with Cook. They keep doing it every year. Now it's going to be Ray Davis. It's just a matter of, is it going to work this time with Bucky Irving? So Tampa, they don't want Rachaad White to handle everything.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thought last year. I mean, looking back at Rachaad White, doesn't really pop off on tape. The metrics last year weren't great. But yeah, the backfield, and I thought somebody would kind of carve into that role. A lot of people were talking about Sean Tucker, Chase Edmonds, maybe. I'm thinking of the other Keyshawn Vaughn was also there, but all these guys were just hot garbage. Nobody could unseat Rachaad White. And Rachaad White is good at what he does. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. He's a safety valve there. He's a durable runner, and he was solid in that offense. So is Bucky Irving, 4th round pick out of Oregon, 5'10", $194. He's not really like a burner. He's kind of, I guess he kind of does some of the same things that Rachaad White does. So maybe he takes a little bit of a break gives Rachaad White a little bit of a break, but I think people are kind of they're looking at the metrics, they're looking at the tape like, well, this guy's not that good. Somebody's going to take his job, but I think it's going to be just like last year. I think it's going to be like the same shit. I think Rachaad White is going to lead this backfield, and he's going to have another pretty good fantasy season. Bucky Irvin's probably better than those other guys. You'd have to assume, because they're all pretty much. Chase Edmonds is shot. Sean Tucker didn't really show anything. I know he was coming back from, some physical issues, so maybe he, is a little bit stronger this year. But yeah, I think Rachaad White, I don't really see anybody unseating him. I don't think Bucky Irvin's a big threat.
Yeah, I think Rachaad White, we've talked about it on this show. For me, you talked about his efficiency. I mean, he was 44th in yards per carry. 34th in fantasy points per opportunity, which the team doesn't care about, 23rd in juke rate, 33rd in yards per touch, 47th in breakaway run rate, 57th in true yards per carry. The one thing I'll give Rachaad White, and I've given him a lot of shit this season, I won't lie, is that they did have a pretty banged up offensive line over there. So when we talk efficiency, I do got to cut him a little bit of slack. Just because, they really didn't do him many favors when it comes to that. But on the other side of it, my case with not drafting, Rachaad White has always been this season when it comes to just the cost, right? If we see his ADP continue to continue to slide, I'll feel a little bit more comfortable drafting him this season. The last thing I wanted to say is the when it comes to the volume with Rachaad White, which is the big kicker as to why he was so good for fantasy. Yeah. Bucky Irving had a 23.6 pass blocking grade by PFF last year. That was one of the worst in college football. He actually graded out as the bottom 20 in all of college football for running backs. Actually, he was the 7th worst in all of college football for running backs. So Rachaad White's a good pass blocker. Unless Bucky Irving excels and has a great offseason where he gets better at that, Rachaad White's still going to get that volume in the passing game. It's just a matter of if this team is going to run the football more. And if a guy like McMillan, who they drafted to play slot receiver, which reports are saying that he looks really good and is the best receiver out there, better options in the passing game may make it that they don't throw it to the running back. But if Rachaad White slips another round, I'll feel a little bit more comfortable taking him in fantasy drafts this season. Just not at that. He was going in the mid to late 3rd round and to begin the offseason, and I just can't touch him at that cost.
Yeah, he's still going there, I think. Last year you were getting him, 9th round? So,
which is why I think people are that's why Anthony said he's the darling, because, he showed out for a lot of people that didn't really invest much in him. So,
yeah, this backfield to me, I'm personally looking for that guy who's going to eat away at some of those Rachaad White touches. I just don't know if Bucky Irving is it. The alluring thing to me about Bucky Irving, because he had a very disappointing combine, despite I think he averaged somewhat of 6.4 yards per carry in college. So the thing that is alluring is the fact that we don't know who the hell he is. I would like to assume he's a better running back than Chase Edmonds at this point. What else do they have there? Miles Gaskin might be on that roster, and I feel like I'm missing somebody.
Tucker's
Sean Tucker. So, like, if Bucky Irving emerges as the number 2 and is somewhat competent, he could potentially eat some of the workload. Now, in the screen right now, I have some of the advanced NFL stats at RotoWire for Rachaad White. There's a lot of green here, and the green is the percentile catch rate. 95 percentile, 9.6 yards after the catch, 85th percentile, 93rd percentile in terms of percent of the team targets, touches per game off the map, 94%. When it comes to his rushing ability, a lot of red, and that's bad. Red's bad. Outside of percent of yards after contact, or his 64th percentile, he's not a very good rusher, which is why I believe there's a shot that if Bucky Irving could do anything and impress anybody in preseason and training camp, maybe he could see 8 to 10 touches per game. Because I just don't think Rachaad White, excellent receiver out of the backfield, only 3.6 yards per carry last year. His rookie year with Fournette, 3.7 yards per carry. He is a volume fantasy football running back, and last year there was a few of them. If you were one of those people chasing volume, it was obviously Rachaad White, and the other guy was Alexander Madison. If you guessed right, you're probably going to a fantasy championship. If you guessed wrong and took Madison, you were probably shopping the waiver wire all year and hoping to get into a playoff spot. So it was great when you were getting Rachaad White, as you guys are saying, very cheap, low risk. You got a high reward, but now you're paying a little bit of a premium for Rachaad White. Yeah. And that's where the issue is, because let's say he doesn't get those pass catching opportunities. You got to remember, this is a new offensive coordinator. This affects Baker Mayfield. Maybe they want Baker Mayfield to cut it loose a little bit more and not target the running back. Rachaad White had how many? 70 targets. Maybe this OC doesn't want that. So without those pass catching opportunities, I think that Rachaad White becomes a little bit more of a high risk player to be drafting in fantasy football.
Yeah, I agree. And, third round. So last year he was the value. And now you look below him, and you're going to have to be savvy and find values below him. Whether it's Devin Singletary, Brian Robinson, Jonathan Brooks, Javonte Williams, like we just mentioned. So, yeah, I think third round is kind of crazy. I mean, I don't know if I'm jumping at Rachaad White there.
And one thing too, Bucky Irving was ranked 5th for receiving grade by Pro Football Focus out of all running backs in college football last year, with a minimum of 150 attempts. So he is a really good pass catching back. If he can improve in the blocking side of things, and he can prove that he's a better runner of the football, again, like Anthony said, are you willing to take the risk that White even sees a slight regression in volume that makes him just not palatable for the price that you're taking him at?
Yeah, and other guys going to – I don't love this area for running backs, by the way. Other guys going around Rachaad White, Mixon, Josh Jacobs, James Cook, who I don't know if you guys saw the report today. He's dropping passes, and that was an issue last year. That just makes me love Ray Davis that much more. I'm waiting to draft running backs. Like, if I'm not getting the top guys, the sweet spot for me, it starts with Aaron Jones, Jonathan Brooks, who's up 6.2 spots, Connor, and then even further, which is mind-blowing, that you get Najee Harris and Zamir White at their price points in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's where the running back sweet spot is. I just don't love that. What is that, 3rd and 4th round spots for running backs? It just gives me a bad taste in my mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, you could certainly go 0 RB, start your team with receivers, maybe a nice quarterback, tight end, and then just get a bunch of running backs later on.
I think outside of the top tier guys that you get at running back in round 1, round 2, there's a significant drop off, from rounds 3 to even 5 or 6. I like Najee. I like some of those guys, but this may be a year where, again, people zig and you zag. Everybody wants to draft all these receivers. They want to draft 2 receivers round 1, round 2, and then wait for running back round 3. But what do you do round 3 and round 4 when you're paying premiums for running backs that aren't very good for where they're getting drafted, but they're just there because they're starters, right?
Well, you could wait even longer.
Then you're really going RB hero. But
you could get, like Anthony mentioned, you can get Najee, get Zamir White in the 7th round. You get Ramondre in the 6th. You get Singletary, get Bryant. So, you could just fill your roster with a bunch of running backs, get good depth, and you only really need 2 or 3 of those guys to hit. And, you have all those high talented receivers that you're going to get a lot of targets.
Yeah. Who comes up, before we go to our next, who comes up with these names? Hero running back. There's zero robust running back. Like, robust is a salad dressing. not a fantasy football. It's just one of those things.
It's the fantasy football matrix.
Like, why are we why can't we just play fantasy football some days? Why do we got to use these silly names?
All right, well, we'll come up with our own terms then.
If you got such better ideas, then why don't you sit down and try to rename? I don't want
to name anybody. I don't want to name anything. I just want to draft fantasy football teams. I don't need to name my running back strategy.
Do you name your team anything funny? Do you just leave it there as Anthony Servino 1, 2, 3? Is that
I
the
have
real NFL
had
guru?
The same team name, I would say, dating back to 2007 or 2008, T.O.'s Popcorn. And it's the same avatar as T.O. eating the popcorn on the sideline. I don't change my – sometimes if it's for like Scott Fishbowl, I'll use my Twitter handle. Or if it's something for Face Off, it'll be Face Off. But normally I have used the same name for, 10 years plus? I am very vanilla.
Yeah, that's lame.
All right. Let's hear some of your team names. I heard they're pretty exciting.
Well, I think one was my team name is for one is Drunk Off That Henry, because I have Derrick Henry, Henry. That's one, right? I had Bijan, so I went with that Bed Bath and Bijan. I liked that one last year.
That's creative, actually.
Yeah, that one was cool.
Bed Bath and Bijan.
Yeah, I'd have to look and see what else, but those are the highlights. I get creative. Like my dynasty home league is 4th and Drunk, right? Like, we just do stupid stuff. You just gotta have a little pizzazz, you know what I mean? Like a little something, not this.
I get out of that.
I'm too busy winning.
I get out of that.
I'm like Bill Belichick. I don't bullshit.
Yeah, it's good. You keep it simple. Everybody knows who you are too. You got that staple name. Everybody can recognize you. I come up with like crazy ass names like Gary's Plumbing and Biscuits, shit like that. I do all sorts of weird shit, so nobody knows what the hell's going on.
See, and then you want people to think that you're an idiot because then they underestimate you, and that's how you take
or if
advantage.
that team comes in like last place, then fuck, I ain't going to Gary's Plumbing. They fucking suck.
Let's go to our final running back set before we go to our wide receivers. And that's Nick Chubb and pull up my sheet. I'm looking at the timestamp. I'm trying to record the timestamp.
No, you're good. It's Nick Chubb, Ford, and Foreman. Chubb has been the one that made significant movement. He's at 117 right now. He's moved down 13.6 spots. Ford has stayed pretty much in between one pick up, one pick down, nothing notable. And Foreman has dropped down 2.8 spots. So I guess maybe I don't know what to make of the news as to why there's movement. It could just more or less be people, that Nick Chubb came out and said that he doesn't have a timeline for when he's going to be back. And maybe that spooked some people. I'm not worried about Nick Chubb. Jesse Morris came out and said that he felt like week 1 is very possible for Chubb given when he got the surgery. So, but I think there's some people that are hesitant out there, which is partially why he's moving down a little bit.
Yeah, the value for Nick Chubb right now is what's alluring. It's just a matter of, we do run that risk of injury when he's going to come back. Can he recover it from it? Because this isn't the first time he suffered almost this exact injury. And Nick Chubb is also 28 years old. I don't think he's by that running back cliff, the proverbial running back cliff. This is another situation, polar opposite when I had the Rachaad White stats up. I'll pull up and I'll show you what a real running back looks like in Nick Chubb. And his efficiency metrics as a rusher jumps off the page. 100th percentile, the best running back in the league at broken tackle rate. 3.7 average yards after contact, 97th percentile, doesn't drop the pass, 100% catch rate, doesn't get a lot of pass catching opportunities, but when he does, he catches them. So this guy jumps off the page in a lot of these efficiency metrics, still at his age, only played in 2 games last year. I don't know. Like you're getting Nick Chubb, 10th round, right around?
Yeah.
I'm fine there.
And where are you getting these stats from, Anthony? What website is this?
RotoWire.
It's RotoWire. Okay.
Other guys in his backfield, they have Ford, and the big one, I wanted Dallas to get D'Onta Foreman. He is one of the more underrated backs in the league, and we know he came off of that Achilles injury, and he's one of the few who's actually rejuvenated his career. D'Onta Foreman, I think, is the biggest challenger in this backfield. And I get like last year, Jerome Ford had a nice little run.
Yeah.
If you're not, let's say, or if you're drafting Nick Chubb, you're in a deeper league or even a best ball league, and you want to protect that investment, I am getting D'Onta Foreman over Jerome Ford. I think he's a superior running back. And if you remember, D'Onta Foreman has never really been in a great situation, but he popped in Carolina. He's popped everywhere he's been when his numbers called. So in a small sample size, like let's say, Chubb misses the first 4 games of the year. Those first 4 games, you could potentially get some monster production out of D'Onta Foreman.
Yeah, I love that. You're talking about Ford in the 10th round along with Chubb, and then you can get Foreman in the 19th. And Foreman could easily just supplant Jerome Ford. So I like that. We've kind of always been on Foreman on this show. Whether he's been at Carolina, whether he's been with the Titans, even last year with the Bears. So I like that strategy. You take Chubb. We talked about Chubb, last week or the week before in our player comparison. You can kind of hedge your bets a little bit. Take Foreman in the second to last round there. Wait for Chubb to get fully going. Hopefully the Browns don't rush him back too quick. I saw he was out on the field yesterday. He was working out with the guy. He was out there with his jersey on, so that's always a good sign. But still questions if he's going to be fully ready for week 1. But I think the value 9 rounds later. I think why go after Jerome Ford when you can get Foreman, who was proven that he can be very, very capable running back, and I don't see much of a difference in talent.
Foreman, before you go Pete, Foreman, nothing last year with Chicago, but in 21 and 22 with Tennessee and Carolina, he had a total of 8 games with over 100 rushing yards, 5 of those with the Carolina Panthers post CMC. That was a bad football team. He was running the hell out of the football that year.
Yeah, Brown's also getting back Jack Conklin, right? I mean, he missed most of last year, so he's going to be back healthy this year. A huge piece for their offensive line, and still one of the better blocking offensive lines in the league.
Yeah, so I'm actually in a different spot than you guys are here. I prefer Jerome Ford. Just pulling up some statistics, and some of these are from Colin McTampty from Fantrax. Jerome Ford last year had 23 runs of 10-plus yards, and he also had 63 targets. I think the difference between Foreman and Ford is that when Nick Chubb comes back, Ford is still going to have a role in this offense. Foreman and Chubb have a very similar skill set, but Jerome Ford had 44 catches, which would be the highest of the career for Nick Chubb, and those targets aren't going to go away. Foreman doesn't provide that kind of – I mean, he can catch the football on short passes and block out of the backfield, but he's not Jerome Ford. When Nick Chubb comes back, I think Jerome Ford is still going to have an opportunity in this offense. And he looked pretty damn good when he was on the field last year. So I actually really think you're getting Jerome Ford at a value. I mean, if on the off chance, which it's not that crazy, if Nick Chubb's rehab doesn't go as smooth as we expect and he has a setback and he's not ready for the first few weeks of the year, Jerome Ford has a very good chance of being the number one back in this backfield. He's been in this offense already. We've seen him do it. They like him. So I feel like Foreman was a pickup for them as insurance just in case, Chubb has a setback and they have a similar guy in that backfield. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Foreman gets cut if Chubb is ahead of schedule too. So they have Pierre Strong. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think Jerome Ford has a much more defined role in this offense, no matter what happens with Foreman or Chubb. So I'll take Ford, pretty much getting him at the 10th, between 10th and 12th round in most drafts this year. So.
Yeah, I don't know if he was that. He caught a bunch of balls, but he only had 4 yards per carry. He was terrible in that playoff game. I mean, that whole game was a shit show. Flacco freaking.
Yeah, he had 9 touchdowns last year, though. I mean,
yeah, but he was the only guy. Like, there was nobody else.
I mean, Kareem Hunt was vulturing a little bit.
Hunt was there. That's true.
4 yards a carry is not bad either. I mean, when you're going at 3.5, 4 yards a carry is respectable for sure. No. I mean, you're a pretty decent running back.
He just had a couple games where he was just, I mean, every running back kind of does that.
Well, but keep in mind
3 carries for 6 yards, 9 for 17, 15 for 25.
But think about it. How many games were they rolling out these shitty quarterbacks before Flacco even stepped on the field too? I mean,
Conklin was out. Conklin was out too.
Yeah,
I just think Foreman's a threat. I really think. I agree. Especially 9 rounds later. If it was like 2 rounds or something like that, a little bit closer, but I think 9 rounds is too much for Foreman.
Yeah, I think it's a good dart throw for sure if you miss out on Ford. But I definitely I'm definitely targeting Ford at that price range.
And to piggyback off this, let's say you're right and Foreman is cut. He's going to get another job. And the reason why Foreman would get a job over any other free agent running back is because he's going to be going through training camp and preseason. And a lot of these other running backs, they're going to be coming off the street. Foreman, if he did get cut, that's a positive. He would get the call before Kareem Hunt. He would get the call before Cam Akers. So you're investing in draft pick. Maybe he gets cut, but he's going to be the first guy that gets a phone call to get a new job.
Yeah, but there's going to be there's a chance that Dalvin Cook still doesn't have a job. He may get signed in camp. No, just saying. Samaje Perine, we just talked about him. I would take Samaje Perine right now over. I'm just throwing out Cook as in general. I mean, he was terrible for the Jets, but most players were bad.
Well, once he went to the Ravens, Cook he actually was pretty decent.
Dalvin Cook versus Donta Foreman.
Well, I don't know what the bet would be. How could we?
You're saying, he's going to get
more fantasy points.
Well, you can't say more. Dalvin Cook's not even on a team yet,
right?
Well, I don't know where he's going. I can't make that bet until I don't know where I'm going either.
But you're bringing up Dalvin Cook.
Well, I'm just saying when it comes down to it, I don't think Dalvin Cook had an outlier bad season. But when he because
he was on the
Jets, okay, so there you go. But when he came into the Jets, people were excited as hell for that.
No,
am I wrong? If it was this time last season, okay, and we were talking Dalvin Cook or Donta Foreman, people would laugh in your face if you said Donta Foreman over Dalvin Cook. So Dalvin had 1 bad year. Donta Foreman had 4 bad years in a row because he came off a bad injury. I mean, I'm just saying it's worth a team. The Cowboys would be stupid not to bring in a guy like Dalvin Cook at this point. I mean, what else do they have to lose? I mean, he played on the Jets.
They did. They did bring in Dalvin Cook. His name is Zeke Elliott. Okay. What's the difference? Maybe Zeke has more juice left.
Listen, if Dalvin Cook signs somewhere, when we get closer to the season, because again, keeping in mind the Browns also have a good offensive line. I need to see where if Dalvin Cook goes to the Carolina Panthers, but take the Carolina Panthers, Miles Sanders might get cut. There's a very good chance he gets cut, and he might go through training camp as well.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll get a little pizza bet on that at some point when cuts happen, and we'll see where things shake
by the
out.
way, Donta Foreman, you're saying Dalvin had one bad year. The year that Donta Foreman, Carolina, 2022. What did I say? He had five games over 100-yard rushing. Or that span, or 2001, 2022. He had 8 100-yard rushing games. Dalvin Cook had 6 in that same period with Minnesota when he was still good.
With Minnesota, just so you know, prior to last season, Dalvin Cook's lowest yards per carry was 4.4 in 2022. The year before he got to the Jets, and he rushed for 1,173 yards the year before he got to the Jets, and that offensive line in 2022 for the Vikings was dog shit.
I'm just saying, I don't think Donta Foreman is as bad as you think he is.
No, I don't think he's bad. I love Donta Foreman. I had him in plenty of teams on plenty of teams last season, but I'm just saying, there are other guys that may get cut. If P. Ryan, Miles Sanders, and Donta Foreman all 3 get cut, and you're telling me that Donta Foreman's is the highest one on that list out of those 3, I think he's probably the lowest.
I don't think P. Ryan's going to get cut. Now I think about it, but
after the show, we're gonna post something on Twitter, settle this debate, settle this argument. Who would you rather have, Dalvin Cook or Donta Foreman today?
Okay. All right, that's fine. I don't even care if the majority agrees with you, because the last we saw of each player, Foreman looked better. Sure, Foreman also played, on a team like the Bears, which they were bad, right? Don't get me wrong, but there was also a rushing threat in Justin Fields there too, where you had to focus on him in an option offense.
Zach Wilson, that's all I'm saying. Was a rushing threat.
All right, let's move on here. We don't want to bore the people with this anymore.
I do.
I don't think we need to harp too much more on this argument here.
We're literally talking about 2 of the most irrelevant fantasy football players. Hey,
exactly.
All right, well, let's go to our next guy in Christian Watson. Yeah, the stats are there, Anthony. Why don't you read it off?
So Christian Watson versus Romeo Doubs. And we also have some ADP here for Wicks, Jaden Reed. So Watson up 11.9 spots from 107.9 to 96. Wicks up 9.5 spots, 163.4 to 153.9. Jaden Reed up 4.1 spots, 84.4 to 80.3. And Romeo Doubs down 1.8 from 151.9 to 153.7. It just seems like the whole world is infatuated with this Packers passing attack. And I don't get it. I know, Pete, we did a video on Jordan Love, and I'm not sold. And I get Jordan Love had a tremendous season. I'll take it to Jordan Love before we get to these receivers. They threw a lot last year because it was a bad defense. They had to. Historically, LaFleur's offenses with Aaron Rodgers, they did not throw as much. I think as this defense gets better, they're going to throw less. Also, there's a lot of injuries you brought up, Pete. A lot of injuries at quarterback. There's a reason why Jordan Love finished as one of the best fantasy quarterbacks. There was a lot of fantasy quarterbacks who were normally up there, irrelevant. They were hurt. I also like this receiver room. There's no alpha. There's no wide receiver 1 here. There are a bunch of 2s and 3s. So I don't really understand the hype here. Like, I get it. If you want to take your shots on one of these guys, that's fine. But like, if these price points continue to skyrocket, especially for Christian Watson, who has shown us he can't stay healthy. Now, he did some procedures, I believe, this offseason to try to get his hamstrings right, which is fine. He's never been able to stay healthy. If this, what if he gets, I'm fine outside a pick 100 for Christian Watson, but he's now inside the top 100. Jaden Reed, how high are we willing to draft Jaden Reed? I believe his ceiling is capped. I think he has all the talent in the world. If you put him in a more in a different offense to where he's going to get 130 targets, I think the ceiling is sky high for his skill set. there's just a lot of guys here. Plus, we're not considering they have two really nice pass catching tight ends. I just don't know if there's enough targets to go around, and I don't think there's going to be enough pass catching opportunities to go around. If you believe this LaFleur offense is going to go back to where it normally is, which is fewer passing attempts, more efficiency. And oh, by the way, efficiency is not Jordan Love's best friend.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Watson cracking into the top 100 is a little rich for me as well. I do think the Jayden Reed hype has gone a little too far. I think when you watch the playoff games and the games that mattered, they showed you Jayden Reed didn't show up in that 49ers game, right? Wicks was involved. And this is, again, an offense where they have two good tight ends in Kraft and Musgrave. Young and solid that showed flashes. Romeo Doubs, for some reason, is just the guy that just won't go away. He ain't going to break out, but his ceiling is capped. Yeah. Wicks is probably the highest upside player in this room, in my opinion.
Really?
I mean, he's a very athletic player. He can play all over the field. I'm still probably not drafting Wicks either, but it wouldn't be that crazy to take a guy like Wicks who's going at the 153 if his price stays there, because with the injuries to this room, I mean, Jayden Reed was also hurt playing through injury last year. Christian Watson, yes, I love Christian Watson. When he's on the field and he's healthy, he's a damn good football player. I mean, in 2022, keep in mind, he had 9 touchdowns in 9 touchdowns in 2022, I believe. And that's with rushing and receiving. And that was one of the highest in the league. And all his efficiency metrics were high. Yards per route run, he was 12th. Formation adjusted yards per route run, 12th. Yards per target, 15. Like, this is a very talented guy. And his true catch rate was 7th. So, he just can't stay on the field. And so you're kind of hoping, but I'm not going to put the chips in the middle of the table for a guy like Christian Watson just because we saw a nice story that he worked on his hamstring size and there was a discrepancy where one was much larger than the other likewise. And that's why they think it led to all these hamstring injuries. I'll be happy to be wrong on Christian Watson and miss out on him rather than take him as a top 100 pick at this cost. I just can't stomach that. I'd rather shoot for a guy like Wicks and fade the rest of this room, to be honest.
Yeah, Christian Watson is, he's a different type of receiver. 6'4", he's got elite speed. The issue with him, like we all talked about, is the health. But you notice, once he comes back, he gets a little bit adjusted to the offense. He starts to explode. 2022, 8 catches for $107, 3 touchdowns. The next game, 6 for 48, 2 touchdowns. The next game, 6 for $110, another touchdown. Next game, 7 for 48, another touchdown. Then he was kind of struggling with injuries down the stretch, but finishes with a big season in his rookie year. Then even last year, again struggles with injuries, but then he finally gets accustomed to the offense. Goes off week 11, touchdown. Just 2 catches, 21 yards. Week 12, 5 for 94, another touchdown. Then 7 for 71 against Kansas City and their defense, another 2 touchdowns. Then he's hurt the rest of the freaking year. I don't even know if he played in the playoff game. I think he did come back in the playoff game, but he was just coming back. So it's like every time this guy comes back from injury, it takes him like 3, 4, 5 games to get adjusted back into the offense, and then he starts to explode. So yeah, Jayden Reed in the 5th round. I think that's, I think that's kind of crazy. Like for what you and Anthony mentioned, there's just so many different guys. Wicks, the 2 tight ends, the running game, Romeo Doubs. So I think Christian Watson, get him in the 9th round. Yeah, it's risky. Yeah. The hamstring injuries, but it could really be a huge, huge value. And I think this Packers team is going to be a very tough cover because, they don't have a number 1, but they have all those guys that I just mentioned, including Bo Melton, who's pretty damn good in his own right. He's like the 5th receiver out there. So we saw what they did to the Cowboys. And I like the Dontavian Wicks call. You can get him late. We saw him dust Stephen Gilmore in the playoffs last year. They just absolutely abused the Cowboys. Sorry, Anthony, but
thank you.
I that's why I like the Packers stack with Jordan Love. So if you miss, you get Watson, maybe he gets hurt, but you could also get a Romeo Doubs. You could also get a Wicks. I do like Jayden Reed a lot. I think I love his talent, but 5th round is a little high. And I'd rather, get some of those other guys later.
So are you still, where are you? Let's like, I guess let's rope in Jordan Love here since we're on the Packers. This is a very polarizing conversation. Are you in or out on Jordan Love? I already said, yeah.
Well, I'm in on Jordan Love. 32 touchdowns, 4,000 yards, also ran for another 3 touchdowns. So 35 total touchdowns. Again, I just don't see a fall off. I mean, yeah, maybe their defense is better. I don't really know. Who knows? But I don't see a big fall off from him. I could see him, similar numbers, possibly even better. I just think he has too many weapons at the receiver position. I think this team is going to be a very, very tough team to cover. And I think Jordan Love showed us enough last year. Started out hot, then kind of went through a little bit of a tough stretch, but then bounced back towards the end of the end of the season. I think I saw enough from him. He's got the arm. His deep ball is pretty accurate. The weapons, I think it's just all those receivers that just are scary. I think they're a scary team. So I like investing in them. I like stacking them with Jordan Love.
So we don't have to spend a lot of time in this final one, but I do want to squeeze it in because it's a significant jump, and this is the Giants' backfield. Eric Gray up 101.4 spots. ADP from 340 to 239.2. Singletary up 1 spot, up to 110.9. Tracy, no change. The big one here is obviously Eric Gray going to his second year. Obviously, no more Saquon Barkley. The reports are kind of hyping, hey, Devin Singletary, Dable saying Singletary knows the offense in and out. We know, barring injury, Devin Singletary is going to open the year as the every down back. Is there any chance, or are you guys willing to take a shot on Gray or Tracy, kind of hoping, maybe they cut into Singletary's workload? Because when it's all said and done, it is Devin Singletary, and he was okay with the Texans last year, kind of serving as the every down back, because Dameon Pierce didn't really do a lot of damage when he did get his opportunities, and that was a very good Texans offense. That were throwing the hell out of the football. You would think the open rushing lanes would be there. So it's like, what is Singletary really going to do here to hold on to this job if either one of these other running backs have a pulse?
Steve, you can take it first.
Yeah. I mean, Eric Gray, I'm not too – I don't get too excited about him. Didn't really do too much last year. Singletary's definitely going to open up. I am a little bit intrigued by Tracy. He's a converted wide receiver. He's got, 5'8" or 5'9", 210. So he's got good size, good speed. I think that he's a bigger threat to Singletary. I think I like targeting him more so than Eric Gray. I think he's a different type of player. I think he brings a different dynamic. So I don't get too excited about Eric Gray. I mean, it's crazy. I think people, the jump with Eric Gray probably has to do with Devin Singletary. People are just probably underwhelmed by Devin Singletary. He's not the most flashiest type of player. So people are saying, okay, well, let's go. Eric Gray could take over this backfield. But I'm more inclined to say Tyrone Tracy kind of earns a role alongside Singletary there.
Yeah, I prefer Tyrone Tracy too in this backfield. He was a pretty good receiving back in college and all. I try not to read into camp hype too much. It can blind you for sure, and there's a lot of agendas out there where certain people are pushing the guys that they want. But Tracy was a pretty good pass catcher in college. I think he has a chance to steal this third down role. And from reports from Art Stapleton, who's one of the beat writers for the Giants, said that Tracy did spend a good portion of the 11-on-11 drills with the ones, in the mini camp, mandatory mini camp for the Giants. And so it looks like he's going to be given every opportunity to win the job as well. My thing about Devin Singletary is, when he was there in Buffalo, I get he's familiar with Brian Daboll, but it's not like we sat there and were in love with Devin Singletary in this Brian Daboll offense when he was a part of that team. I'm just, he doesn't, Singletary he's a decent player, but he doesn't do anything that jumps off the page. He's not flashy. And this is going to be a Giants offense that's going to be looking for a spark outside of Neighbors. They don't really have many playmakers on this team. I like Wan'Dale Robinson. Jalen Hyatt was a good prospect coming out of college, and then he faded until, once the draft came because he dealt with some injuries. But I prefer Tyrone Tracy at this price. And his ADP right now is sitting at 177. You're pretty much getting him as your second to last pick or last pick. And honestly, I expect, if reports come out that, he's looking the part and is playing well, I would be a betting man and say that his ADP settles closer to the 140 to 150s and he jumps up at least 20 spots. And like I said, I think they're going to be looking for a spark in this offense. And I'm not really a huge fan of Eric Gray. He was a decent college player. Both are 5th round running backs. But I'll put my chips in on Tyrone Tracy in this backfield.
We're going to wrap up from here, everybody. We're going to be back Friday. Guys, we're doing another Friday draft. We're going to keep that streak going.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
So another live draft Friday coming up. We'll be dropping some form of video tomorrow. We're going to be trying to pump out as we get to this type or this time of year. Content almost daily, especially during the week between live shows. And, we're going to be clipping individual segments from here. We're going to be dropping targeted content on YouTube and other social media platforms. So this is a great time of year to subscribe, hit the like button and notification icon here on YouTube and on the podcast networks. But for Pete, Steve, and myself, this is the Face Off Sports Network. If you want to win, you have to tune in. We'll see you Friday.